So we'll start with the book of Genesis. Science questions at creation or answers in Genesis. I recommend the book Creation to Babel by Ken Ham, which focuses on the biblical versus the secular. Science, operational involves hypothesis and testing, whereas historical science, which applies to both creation and evolution, is not. It requires the earth is young, about 6,000. We can calculate the approximate age of the earth based on the genealogy of the Bible. Fossils labeled, they don't tell you. There's plenty of water to cover the whole earth. If the earth were smoothed out, water would cover the world to a The waters were standing above the mountains rose, the valleys sank down. And this is why we find shells. And we find billions of dead things buried in rock layers. Sedimentary layers can form very rapidly, like they up to 600 feet of sedimentary layers. This created massive, which carved out a canyon 140. There are grand all over the world, not just in Arizona, Tibet, Peru, to Africa. Polystrate fossils shows trees that were laid down vertically with sedimentary layers, making the evolutionary date. Mount St. Helens proves how inaccurate radiometric dating methods are. They tested a rock from the blast and got ages for the very same rock. Dead fish float. They don't sink to the bottom and they float, get eaten by other fish, and the bones are scattered. Here's a fish fossilized in the middle. A school of fish fossilized. An ichthyosaur fossilized hat, teddy bear, and a flour sack, all fossilized. God created the world in 6. He was very explicit about that. In Genesis chapter 1, each day is described saying there was. The word for day is the word yom, which always refers to a literal day when the days are. Exodus chapter 20 in the Sabbath command, God says we should work for 6 days. We should work for 6 literal 20. Evolution requires millions of years of death, disease, and suffering. And that's why he said it was every year the seas are getting saltier and saltier. There isn't enough salt. He found red blood cells. Evolutionists say these bones are 65 million years. 5,000 years old because red blood cells can't last that. There's no such thing as prehistoric. All animals, including dinosaurs, flying creatures, were created. Sea creatures also. Dinosaurs did not evolve. Birds were created before. Dinosaur scales are folds of skin. Dinosaur lungs and bird lungs are extreme before sin. But you might ask, well, what about they died? Have nephesh life, and insects do not. So when we say no death before sin, we mean there was no. Man was made in the image of God and has all kinds. Humans have a conscience, which shows the fingerprints. God made two genders. James Dobson says that biologically, male and what about overpopulation? We could produce enough food to feed all the people. Genesis 1 and 2 speak of creation. Genesis 1 speaks of the creation of the world and gives a brief description. Today, we do keep the Sabbath. There still remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God. It's a rest from works. Believing the gospel. Work is not a curse. God gave. Loneliness is the absence of fear. Carolyn is God's solution to. God said it is not good. So God gave Eve to Adam. Eve was created to. Doug Wilson said, women need. God creates the first marriage and defines marriage. Adam and Eve fall and God gives curses. Slithering for pain in childbirth. Struggle in work for Adam and Eve get kicked out. God rejected Cain's offering. So Cain's descendants included Tubal Cain, Jabal, the 10th, Jubal, the musician. The second law of thermodynamics says things go from order to disorder. Where did Cain get his wife? Oh, he married his sister, which was totally fine morally and biologically at that time. Now today, not so much. Because today, Genesis chapter 6, we have the Nephilim and the sons of. Why do we have genealogies? Factual details show the Bible is. The gospel relies on. How did people live so long? The theory is the canopy. The world was like a hyperbaric, extending longevity. The world too hot. Others say that the whole world would have been a tropical. Stronger magnetic fields would have. Now, there's not a lot of info about pre-flood civilizations due to the destruction. Here's the genealogy from Adam to Noah. Notice the world was righteous Noah. He built the ark according to God's instructions. There's me and my family sitting in. Noah likely brought writings on the ark to preserve the animals came. How did they fit all the animals? The ark was huge. Noah only needed 2 of each kind of animal. He didn't need all the horse kinds. There's a zonkey, a zorse, cat kind. Noah only needed sowen kind, that's sheep and goats. Again, only needed 1 male and female. Actually, were there dinosaurs on the ark? Yes, of course. Probably. Can you get all the races from one family? Yes. Twins from the same parents. Actually, from the 370 days on the ark. After 40 days, the ark was lifted. After 110 days, the flood peaks. And they get off. Moses builds an altar. Where is the ark? In the mountains of Ararat. Some scientists think they found. The cataclysmic events of the flood caused the Pangea. The whole world was one island at the time, but to an ice. Nimrod was the leader in the Babel event, where God. The world has a multiplicity of languages. Multiplicity. Murder should receive the. Just war requires. War must be. Genesis goes from creation to flood to the Tower of Babel, and God told Abraham, who had 0 children, that his descendants. But you gotta get, which is a sign of. Abraham was called to sacrifice. We have the love story between Isaac and Rebekah. Pretty simple. Basically, after the servant brought her over, Rebekah had twins. Jacob stole his brother's. Married sisters. The lovely Rachel. Jacob worked for 7 years for Rachel, got tricked into marrying Leah. Jacob had 12 sons with 4 women, Rachel, Leah, and their maid. Jacob loved Joseph. Brothers sold him into. Joseph rises, flees from Potiphar, lands in prison, rises to second in command in Egypt, where he is able to save the world from a famine. Then Jacob's family comes to Egypt. His brothers apologize, and Joseph says, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good."